Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one sessions in both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMB Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoachddanamzallag.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 10th and last episode of Season 11, a very special guest and expert in resilience, Donna Ferris. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Donna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dan. That was so nice of you to introduce me and to have me on your podcast.
Absolutely.
I have gotten some real experience in resilience, and like probably most of your listeners, not something we necessarily want to get good at, right? Mm-hmm. We think our lives are going to be moving up in a straight line, in a positive, slanting straight line. And really, life is not like that. And in my experience, I had 3 years of pretty dramatic changes. I experienced betrayal. I got divorced. I fell in love with somebody else. My mother died. And then I lost the second love that I had. So all this happened in a very short period of time, all while I was training to become a yoga therapist, which is bringing all of the things together in terms of spiritual, mind, body together to help people solve problems. And we typically would work with psychotherapists as yourself and other practitioners to really give a full experience for our mutual clients. And that was my goal, was to do that. But as soon as I started that process of training, my whole world kind of imploded with the betrayal and the divorce. And then I was able to apply all the things I was learning to the second and third losses. And I continue to. I mean, I think even though I did write a book about those three really difficult years, and I think it's been well received and helpful to other people, I continue to, as we all do, have challenges. As you age and your children grow and your parents get older, it doesn't get simpler. I think we just get better at it, right? So that is my background. I do workshops and teach people how to write about their lives, writing memoirs, et cetera, about their lives, because it's a really healing practice. So that's a little bit about me. Hope that's helpful.
Oh, definitely. And I hope that a lot of listeners today are actually going to probably relate to what you went through. But when it comes to studying or learning about resilience and putting it to practicality, because if it happened to you, sometimes it's not as easy as just coaching someone to be able to go through resilience. So how did you cope with all of those, the traumatic experience that you felt, the betrayal, the divorce, losing your mom, losing your second love? I mean, in all coming at the same time, the body can only do so much or handle so much. So what strategy did you use for yourself that it worked?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So of course, the first time I went through it, so when I got, betrayed and was in the process of divorce, I tried to muscle through it. So I think and I did try to do it again, actually, when my mother died. I think because of the third loss happened so quickly, I couldn't do it anymore. I realized that what I was doing wasn't working. And I think that was the time that I really made change. And what I realized is I had to feel it to heal it. That's a classic, but it is true. And it's a hard thing to do. So it's not something that you can do in the first days. Sometimes, the numbing of shock and so forth is helpful in those first days, and just creating some sort of a spiritual or repetitive practice. Like for me, it's a daily meditation or a daily reading, walking my dog, like just something that I could consistently stick with that would just keep my belief that things could be better, right? Because in the moment, it's hard to do that. Over time, then there's other things that you can add: more self-care, more nurturing, more, I think you said you do EFT. I think EFT is great for trauma. I mean, that's something that actually I did as part of my grieving process and was incredibly helpful, because it does make you feel the things that you're going through so that you can release the energy. During this time, I was also training to become a Reiki master. So that was a unique thing. I had no idea I was going to need it to the level that I did, but it really helped me learn that the energies that we feel, the sadness, the grief, the anger, the denial, all of those things have to go somewhere.
Yes.
And if we don't process them in some manner, and it's many times easier to process it than numb it or hold on to it or deny it. We have to process it. And so I think that's the big lesson I learned. And I tell people, but know that in the beginning of a major change, it's not easy. I mean, I alluded to it in my opening. I'm going through something now. Again, I think when you start to say that you're going to be an expert on resilience, the universe says, hey, let me show you another one. And it has been. And I've leaned back into it, back into the same things. Am I really taking care of myself? Am I really, because you have to do that so you can make the next best decision and the next best decision and the next one, because it's going to keep coming. And if you're tired or hungry or resentful because you're not taking good care of yourself and taking care of everybody else instead, it's hard for you to make the next best decision for everyone, including yourself. So I think those are the big things for me. But lots of outlets for grief. I'm sure you have thoughts there too, and I don't want to dominate the discussion necessarily here.
It's good to know someone who actually experienced it many, many times in the past. But do you feel that because of everything that happened to you, Donna, the trauma, the betrayal, the divorce, and all that, do you feel that you said to yourself, well, hold on, there's only negative things happening in my life, and more negative things are coming in, more you're processing those negative thoughts, and then as the laws of attraction stipulate, thoughts become things. So if the thoughts are negative, more things going to become negative. So
right.
how do you
karma?
How do you break that pattern, or how do you break that cycle to be able to
stop
allowing those issues coming into your life to be able to test your resilience?
Yeah, I think you have to create little moments of positiveness in all of this. And also there's also a mindset. There's an acceptance mindset that life is full of these things. So there's a Buddhist mindset, which is life is suffering, which sounds terrible, but it is true. There are these aspects in all of our lives. And someday we're going to die, right? So all of these things are real. We don't really want to face them, especially in Western society, but they are real, and all the more reason to take every moment and make the most of it, right? And find the happiness and the joy in every moment that you can. Viktor Frankl's book, I think it's The Meaning of Life or something.
Holocaust, right?
Yes, exactly. His whole thing is in between stimulus and response, there's the pause, and that pause is our freedom. And that, I think that's true. I think that, and I'm not saying I always get there. I don't preach this. I try to live it, but I know that it's hard, that when you get the stimulus, not to fall into anger, fear, sadness, depression, all of those things, and stay there. I mean, because it feels good to wallow. It can feel great, but it's not helpful, right? And I think it's really good to have some sort of rhythm in your life that doesn't let you do that. And whatever that is, that can be a dog or children, or it can be a regular structure that you have going out in the world. I was talking to somebody, a friend recently, and they are going through something, and but they've already somehow they decided to go do some exercise class that they never thought they would ever do, but they made a structure to do it, and that was a thing that was enough to take them out of sitting in what they were going through. So I think anything that you can do to kind of get you out of your routine, because and know that you're the only one that can do that. If you have kids, you know that you can't tell your kids to do anything, and you can't tell anybody to do anything. The only person that's responsible for your happiness is you, and you know the answer to your problems. I think that's one of the things I learned from doing yoga therapy. It was like the number one thing. I thought I was going to go in there to help people and tell them what to do, but that never works. You can't tell anybody what to do. You have to ask them and be curious about what do you think is the right thing to do, and that's the only way they probably will heal. Which was pretty inspiring for me, but a lesson for sure.
So do you feel that guiding them into providing them options of what are the best alternative, instead of staying where they are, feeling the grief, feeling the pain, staying depressed and anxious and so on and so forth, to be able to start doing something that can distract them from that feeling of where they are right now? So let's say thinking outside, outside of their comfort zone, because sometimes their comfort zone can be something that is familiar, and what is familiar is pain.
That's
So
right.
sometimes, doing something that is outside of that may make them forget that pain for a moment, but it always comes back. So how do you substantiate this for long term?
Yes, I think you have to think about, well, a couple things, right? I agree with you. I think it's helpful to find these things that you used to love to do as a child, things that are creativity. That's kind of the next phase of grief, right? In the beginning, it's kind of shock and numbing and take care of yourself. And then the next phase is kind of how am I going to go on, right? And how am I going to find happiness in my life? And it's good to lean into things that you like to do, like creativity and things like that. And I think it's really important with change or loss, because I think we react similarly to them, because it hurts our belief in ourselves, and it's also uncertain. So it's important to know that the feelings about it will come like waves, right? The shipwreck idea around grief, that at first it feels like it's up to your neck and the waves are up to your neck and you can't, all you're trying to do is swim, right? Trying to just survive here. And then the waves recede, and then they keep coming back, but they come back smaller and maybe less frequently. And just know that that's how it works. Like the way you feel in this moment feels incredibly intense, maybe insurmountable, but it is a moment. And the idea that sunrise, sunset, I was an actress at one point, and I was in Fiddler on the Roof, and that sunrise, sunset concept is really awesome, because every day is a new beginning, a new chance to look at it differently. And taking things day by day is a really great practice, because you can't lean too much in the past and you really can't go too far in the future. I'm just trying to get through this day. And I think that's a really good way to work yourself through these times, and know that they're not going to last. In a year, the intensity of these feelings will be different.
It will subside eventually.
Yes.
But the thing is
Yes.
that, so when it comes to managing resilience, okay, or dealing with everything that comes your way and seeing exactly how much your body and your mind can tolerate. Now, of course, someone who's physically sick, let's say cancer, and after they're in remission, it comes back. After that, they get another illness and another one. How much can the body tolerate at this point? Now, of course, like I said, if it's a loss of a family member or a spouse, the pain is mental, is emotional. The physical, yes, you may feel the depression, anxiety, which may create some kind of like very tiring symptoms in your body. You may want to sleep all the time, so that's physical. But when it comes to much more tough illnesses, how can the body at this point move on or move forward from all this?
Well, I think it becomes a bit of a mind over matter thing, right? And I am not as experienced in this type of thing, right? But because I have not as yet gone through it. That said, I've read a lot of what people have gone through. I had a very close friend that died of colon cancer not too long ago. And I think being as healthy as you can, following all of the different regimens that you can, it takes you so far. But a big part of that type of illness care is the mental, the meditation, the not subjecting your body to the stress hormones as much with your thoughts. So I think there's a lot to be learned there, certainly among all the various people that have been meditation leaders and so forth who have been ill over time. Finding ways to get to the point where no matter what happens, I can still find joy. It's a master class. I'm not saying that I'm there or it's easy, but that is the goal, I think, is to accept that this is what's happening in my body. This is how it's showing up, how this disease or this issue is showing up. But with that, I am not going to waste any moment. I'm going to take every opportunity for joy that I can. Even in pain, I'm going to figure it out. And I think you probably know all the studies of people when they're on their deathbed, right? The things that they wish they had done. I think that list, right? I didn't care about work. None of them are about work. They're all about, I wish I had done the things I always wanted to do, right? I wish I had said the things I always wanted to say. I wish I had I wish I had, I wish I had. I think that list is important to make. And one of my favorite meditations with people is the 80-year-old meditation on your 80th birthday. And you can go higher if you think you're going to live longer, but I always say 80. I hope it's longer than that. What do you want to look back and say you've accomplished? What do you want to who do you want to have around you in the room? How do you want to feel? That's a big one. I mean, if that's a big commitment to take good care of yourself, that you feel you're able to walk around and still run and whatever. All of those things, visualizing that is really important because that helps you look at today. So I think those are things to think about if you're facing extreme illness. Make sure you have a good psychotherapist. Make sure you have good people around you. Make sure that you're still doing things for yourself, and don't let it completely overtake you. I think what I was just listening. I think it was to another. It might have been. I was just reading a book called Time Management for Mortals. It's called 4,000 Weeks. Oliver. I think it's Oliver. Can't remember his last name, but anyway, 4,000 weeks. And he said that when people know that they're going to die, it's the uncertainty around the diagnosis. But when they have the knowledge that they're not going to live long, they actually are more relieved and they're able to really enjoy those last days more than that uncertain time. I'm sure I'll get the chance to figure that out at some point, but I think that's kind of reassuring. I think that a lot of it's a mental game. A lot of everything is a mental game.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
So when it comes, most people tell me, well, Dan, when I meditate, it's hard for me to just sit down, think of nothing, to be able to, and spend like 10, 15 minutes in looking or just going blank. So is meditation really just emptying your mind, or is it really focusing more on the things that you want to be able to do in life? And because meditation in itself, you cannot really add more to the brain to be able to process more thoughts. You have to kind of go completely blank and just let the moment, feel the moment, basically. But people don't know how to feel that moment. So when it comes to meditation, what an easy exercise would you give them to be able to at least understand a little bit better what meditation is all about?
I think my favorite is a pretty simple breathing exercise that you would just, and it is a Sharon Salzberg thing, if you know that name. And she's all about the awareness. And I think that's very true. I think that we have to be aware of what we're doing, of what our triggers are, what are, how we're reacting to situations. And the simple thing of, like you said, like breathing and noticing the breath on your lip as it goes in and out of the nose. What's the temperature as it comes in? What's the temperature as it comes out? And when your mind wanders, because it wanders for everyone, the exercise is noticing that and coming back and just continuing to do that. If you want to take it a step further, my favorite thing right now, as I'm going through some difficult times, is the buckets. I have the helpful thoughts and the unhelpful thoughts. I'm going to, for the next 5 minutes, sort them as they come, right? Because they're going to come. I mean, and it helps me befriend my brain. I think that for me, meditation has become a exercise in awareness, but also an exercise in befriending my brain and recognizing that the thoughts are not real. In most cases, they're all mechanisms for me to help and take care of myself, but many times they don't do either of those things. So I think those two things, awareness of your breath, kindness to yourself that when you've gone off track, and then maybe categorizing those thoughts as helpful or unhelpful so that you can understand how many of your thoughts are unhelpful and be kind to yourself, saying, hey, that's the truth for a lot of people, but I don't have to live in those thoughts.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And I actually recommend a lot about guided meditation where they can
I love that.
into either a YouTube video about how to breathe, the tempo, breathing in for 4 seconds, keep it in for 3, and exhaling for another 3 or 4, and that will kind of at least guide you, help you understand the process of meditation. Then sometimes in meditation they add you some positive affirmation to it, depending exactly what you're dealing on that given moment. And also, I believe that the best time to do the meditation, some others will say, no, I prefer the morning, some people in the afternoon. I always do it when I'm about to go to sleep, because this is when subconscious minds open up, the conscious
Yeah.
goes to sleep, and you absorb all this information that is being looped into your mind, and you let it go all night long. And when I say it's, of course, that goes with guided meditation, because as you are sleeping, you're not thinking about, positivity or anything like that. So you have to listen to it from either
Yeah.
you recorded your own voice, or you hear it from another person that actually repeats the same message over and over again. And as it goes into your mind, it records it, it keeps it there. And then the next morning, you feel more alive, you feel more happy. Because the reason why we see so many people depressed in the morning is because they watch the news the night before. The one thing that they do right before going to sleep, which is always negative, is always toxic, it's always fake. So the thing is that why listen to something fake? Feed your mind with so much toxicity and that is not real, and then going to sleep right after, and your brain is processing the last thing that it listened to. And that in itself,
Yeah.
you wonder why you're depressed in the morning, why you're popping pills every single day of the week, and then say, am I going to be depressed for the rest of my life, or being anxious? Again, these are things that people can change, and that is in their control. So
That's right.
take it out of the bedroom, simple, and don't watch the news,
Yep.
or just like go online and look for whatever.
Doom scroll.
Yeah, that's correct.
I
So,
call it doom scrolling.
I mean, look, there's so many solutions out there, Donna, and people
There are.
refuse to be able to take them because they always feel that, oh, this is metaphysical, or this is esoteric, or this is this, and they don't feel that it is tangible information that they could learn, and they could actually put into practice. So again, is it because our brain is not in tuned because of how we were raised, how we were educated? Our educational system is completely screwed up. What part of this whole process that doesn't allow us to understand things that are not what you see, but what you can create?
Yeah, and I think we've separated any form of, I'm going to call it spirituality, but it doesn't have to be, it has a negative connotation in the culture, I think in our culture, but I'm not talking about the things I think people turn off on. I'm talking about the belief in more than ourselves, and maybe also a belief in a higher power, I guess, of some sort. And I think that is something that we crave. And I think meditation, and I would also say prayer, and I'm not saying prayer to a deity, I'm saying prayer in surrender. Agape, it's Ariana Huffington's sister, just wrote a book about prayer, and it's 52 prayers. And it's really helpful. And it's not steeped in religion in any way. It is all about lifting up, I've done my best. It's the whole idea of the four agreements. I've done my best. I'm surrendering to a higher power and the universe. And I think that's helpful for people. And I think that, but I think we've disconnected from it in a lot of ways. I think in business, in a lot of different areas. And I think that's been harmful. I think that's part of the reason why people turn away from meditation, turn away from anything that might be, I call it woo-woo. And I used to call it that. I start off my book with the woo, calling it all woo-woo, including Reiki and all of it. But I couldn't, and I still can't deny it, that exists. And I think that denial separates ourselves from each other and from, the higher power that probably exists for, at least for me.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that because you've experienced that yourself, I think you're the best to be able to give advice to others on what actually worked for you. But again, it's what works for you specifically. Now, it's not really
True.
applicable to every single individual, because everyone processes things differently when it comes to loss, when it comes to grievance, whatever it is. So if, let's say, anyone would ask you, what would be the top 5 advice that you would give to anyone who's going through what you went through, to be able to cope with those challenges of either betrayal, either loss of a family member, loss of a significant other, and or loss of a job, or being sick, whatever it is? What would you recommend?
I think that, so my first 2 calls, when I found out that I was betrayed, and the same thing happened later when I lost my significant other. I called my therapist, and I called my best friend. So I think reaching out is really helpful, especially to somebody who's qualified in loss or grief or whatever you're going through. I think it's important to also reach out to your medical doctor. If you don't manage, studies have shown if we do not manage these things well, in 12 to 18 months, we will be sick. So it's not a bad idea to reach out to your medical doctor as well, especially if you're not sleeping. I mean, I think there's things to talk about. All the things we've talked about a little bit about, how we're eating and how we're sleeping and all these things. Your doctor can help you work through that. Your psychotherapist might not. So it's important to kind of do that. And then I think it's really important to try to build some sort of routine that gives you some relief every day, whatever that is to you. And that can be, I walked around the house. I meditated if that works for you. I watched something I liked on TV. I read a book. I did something creative, something every day. And then I would say something that honors the situation. So I have done, so I post memes every day. Since my significant other died, I have been posting a meme every day, inspirational or funny, every day in honor of him. I started it as a year, and it's now been 4+ years. So I'm still doing it. So, and you can change those things. It doesn't have to be the same thing. It can be a monthly thing. I can choose, and it's a great way to remember the person, because that's part of the thing, especially when you lose somebody, there's the guilt around it. And so this is a way for you to keep that connection. And as a reminder, they would not want you to feel guilty in any way. So please, that's a wasted feeling. But that said, it does help you feel connected to them and connecting with them in happier ways. So even if it's a change of loss of job, and we can get really resentful when that happens, trying to remember the good things about that job and the good things about this opportunity to make a change in your life. Many times when we lose a job, it's an opportunity to rethink our lives that we would not have otherwise, to go outside of our, I'm sorry?
You change career. Sometimes you feel stuck in a job, and then this is the opportunity for you to be able to try to do something different.
That's right. That's right. And it opens you up, right? It breaks you open in a way that allows you to actually do things that you would have been stuck from doing in the past. I never thought I would write a book. And suddenly I couldn't not write this book because it was healing me. And eventually it made me sober too, which we didn't talk about, but that's a second thing that happens, is that you're open to changes that you never thought you could ever do. So I think I hit them all, but I think definitely getting expert help is a first thing. I mean, I continue to do that. I mean, going through what I'm doing now, I did the same path, call my therapist, actually text my therapist, and then text my best friend. And then, and then the other steps, right? The taking care of myself was big, because it's very tempting to stop eating and to not sleep and to wallow. I'm a wallower, and I need to see that and break myself of that urge. But it's a real urge.
Absolutely. And people have to know as well that they're not alone. There's so many resources out there that I could actually help them go through this process and learn how to be able to cope with the feelings that are of uncertainty, feeling of grief, feeling of loss, feeling of whatever else comes their way. And because of that, they have to just, figure out a plan. And when you have a plan, you feel less likely to be able to be lost in this vast ocean of uncertainty. And
that's right.
That is all the time that we have for today's podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule and to join us. And thank you again for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible story. Now, we hope that you've all enjoyed today's episode, and also very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have scheduled for season 12 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories just like the one that you listened to today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. Life is a combination of happiness and pain. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Having a broad perspective of life gives you the strength to move forward through these painful times. Know that you're very much needed in this world. With all the infinite possibilities, this life is a gift for you to become a fountain of joy and happiness, and not for just oneself, but for the many others out there as well. You need to learn to trust yourself, as you survived a lot, and you will certainly survive what is coming next. The most beautiful people you have known are those who have experienced defeat. They're so familiar to suffering, dealing with intense struggles, face tremendous losses, but yet have found their way out of their abyss. Throughout all these challenges, they learn to appreciate more, being more sensitive and understand the intricacies of life. This in itself filled them with compassion towards others, gentleness, and deep loving concern of human beings. My name is Dr. Danamzallag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.